What is it, Ellen?
Why is the Bible called a holy book when it's the book of life?
Because holy means something that's set aside for a specific purpose. And in actuality, it's not a book, it is a series of books. And it was called, as a matter of fact, the word Bible means big blow,
Means what?
book. So it's called the Holy Book, but it's books. And the Catholics decided that's what they're going to call it, so that's what we call it. As opposed to saying the Book of Life.
But isn't life set apart? Well, not set apart. But you said unholy means. I mean, holy means to be set aside
For something specific.
for something specific.
Mhm.
But isn't that just life in general?
Not necessarily. It's individual life, but not life as a totality. Because life is what it is. You know, it's not like it's set aside. What else could it be set aside for? So I don't know. To me, really doesn't matter as much as it maybe should as to what we call it, because it's not a complete. The books are not complete anyway, so all of them are not there.
Right. Right.
So it doesn't really matter.
So what is the book of life?
The Book of Life is the is zero. What is it? What is it, Nick? Zero Sephra. Sephra yet zero. It's a book written by the sages. That's the Book of Life.
That's the separate units, right? That's the
Yeah,
book of formation, book of creation.
yeah, and so
And the reason why I ask, where it says, and in Revelations about and their names will
be written in the Book of Life.
yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. That I don't know. I have not given any thought to that, honestly. I don't know. I don't know what it means by that. When Revelation speaks to that being written in the book, their names being written in the Book of Life. I don't know. Because I'm not even sure that, I don't know whether that word book is actually there. And looking at it from the Greek would not tell me that. I would definitely have to look at it from the Aramaic to see if it's really there. So I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Because in actuality, it would have referenced something like a scroll as opposed to a book.
Okay.
Because during the time that those things were written, they were written on a scroll, and not in a book.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about a book, is what? A bunch of pages
Right.
that's put together. So, but the way the Bible is written, it's a bunch of short stories, short books, So I don't know. Anything else?
I'm sorry, Pastor.
That's okay, baby. You can speak to her. I guess you can speak to Evelyn.
Do my thing.
Yeah. And that's all I know.
Okay. And one more thing.
Uh-huh.
And Jesus was Thomas' twin, right?
Mm-mm.
What, he wasn't?
Mm-mm. When about born with you when he was born? You didn't have to have a twin. Thomas was a twin. That's why they called him Didymus.
But it wasn't.
Jesus, no.
Okay.
No.
Because I had read something about that. Well, someone had mentioned that
No.
it was Thomas was Jesus' twin. But okay.
No. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. I want to look at. I mentioned it to Nick earlier. Look at the idea of not so much ending racism as to bringing races together making in terms of people from different parts of the world becoming one again. In reference to what Jesus talked to the lady at the well about, he said, where is it? Woman, believe in John 4:21. Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of Judea. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. I have seen that in different ways, but recently, as recent as last week, I saw this as a guide, maybe, or speaking to the idea of destroying this line of demarcation that's called race, and understanding that how do we become one again after being divided for so long. The reason the kingdoms were divided was because of race, and it was because the people in the northern kingdom had intermarried with the Samaritans, and they were considered impure. Now, let's keep in mind that the idea of them being impure, let me back up a moment. It was based upon religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, the difference in the two. And the reason I say that is because all of them were people of color. So it wasn't so much race between Samaria and Judea as it was a difference in what they believed spiritually.
What does it mean that salvation comes?
Deliverance comes from
the Jews.
Deliverance comes through praise.
So that shouldn't be J-E-W-S. It
No.
should be J-U-D-A-H.
Yes. See, that J-E-W-S should never appear in the scripture at all. Anyway. Jew, the word Jew is just as made up as the word race. There's no such thing. And Jesus was talking about salvation comes from praise, which is Judah. And when he was talking to this lady, he was talking to her based upon how the separation was how it came about, because he didn't start talking to her about what she believed. He started talking to her about husbands, who she was married to, who she was connected to. And I think that it was an effort to speak to an understanding that regardless of how you have been labeled, you are still one with your Creator, because He did not speak to any type of separation or any type of what we call sin based upon the husband that she had or was with. So after he does that, then he goes on. Let me back up, because I see something else here. He did not deal with her based upon adultery at all. Mm-hmm. He didn't address it at all. And after having mentioned what he did, he went on to talk about her having this spiritual water, which is and understanding of who we are, of course. And then he concluded in talking about how to surrender to the Father, to a womb. So it had nothing to do with, this has nothing to do with the concept of a sinful woman being at the well with Jesus. Because if he was going to deal with her based upon what appears to be from the writings adultery, then he would at some point said to her, "Thou art forgiven." But he didn't say that. Why? Then as he moved forward, it seems as though he brings in the idea of separation based upon what, tribalism maybe, because of the separation between the northern and the southern kingdoms. So in this, what I see is that he is dealing with separation based on gender, as well as separation based upon what you believe. So if we dissect this a bit further, I think we will see that it is a serious mistake for us to make any attempts to separate people based upon what they believe or what they have engaged in. What are you doing?
Audrey was trying to tell me.
Oh, okay. Do you know what you're doing?
Well, I'm looking for the mouse, that's all.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, she's gone.
I might be able to add her.
Okay.
Okay. Are you looking for the okay,
The mouse.
the cursor? Okay,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the cursor thing, I'm sorry.
okay. Anyway, but you understand what I'm trying to say?
You're talking about this whole issue of oneness again.
Yes.
And anything that tends to try to divide the oneness.
Yes. And I see it in this, because the thing that the thing that was most divisive was the separation of genders, and then the separation based upon skin, based upon birth, and because it did not matter what your skin color was if you came from that certain womb. Any child born from the womb of a enslaved woman was a slave. It didn't matter what skin tone was. It was a slave. So it's based upon birth and gender. So hey. So I think we need to approach this from that perspective, because one of the things that women are saddled with is this whole idea of adultery, and the scripture actually saddles women with that. If you look at it from the Hebrew, it says only a woman could commit adultery, which is crazy. Now, if this whole idea of the concept of adultery was real, why did Jesus not deal with it when he dealt with the woman at the well? He didn't touch it. He simply said that the one you're with is not your own, then he moved on, right? Mm-hmm. So that in itself says to us, or should at least, that your relationship with your Creator is not based upon your life choices. It's based upon your choice as to whether or not you desire to be one with your Creator. It's not based upon your lifestyle. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's not based upon your lifestyle. Because he goes on to talk about, look, even, you talking about you got to come to this place to worship or to surrender to the Creator. You got to be in an elevated state to do that, or you have to be in a state of righteousness to do that. It does not matter. He said the day is coming and is now that you won't do it. Either way, you would just be able to be submissive to the Creator regardless of what state of mind you're in. And I'm saying that this not only encompasses I'm sorry, not only closes the gender gap, but it also erases the racial line of demarcation. It's something that we should see as removing from our mindset the idea of us being separate, because until we understand that we as the humans and mankind are not separate, we will always feel separate from that which we cannot see. If we don't see ourselves as being one and we can see each other every day, then how can we be honest about experiencing the unicity between us and our Creator? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we have to, at some juncture, at some point, we have to make a real decision about this idea of oneness. And when we make that decision about this idea of oneness, then we have to purposefully refrain from anything that alludes to the separation of people based upon gender, race, or socioeconomics for that matter. Understanding that everything that has a tendency to present itself as being divisive is non-existent. Is not a real thing. It is a made-up thing. Even with the socioeconomic thing, it's just a made-up thing. We have created all of these walls that separate us and subdivide us and put us into categories that constantly keeps us apart. And I remember when I was growing up, that was not so prevalent. The biggest separation when I was growing up was gender and race, but it was not socioeconomics that did it. It was gender and race. And now we are at a place where we're beginning to see that there is no difference between genders. And this whole idea about gender gap is non-existent. It is something that was created as a means to make someone else feel superior. It's a sense of superiority. So anytime that we divide, the one who's doing the dividing is the one who feels like it is superior to those who are being separated or convincing them that they're separate. Bessie, what you have?
So, is it because we feed into the stuff
Yes.
that it appears to be so prevalent now? And I'm speaking of the race.
Yeah, we do. We feed into that. For example, one of the ways we feed into it, especially now, is we reference Trump has been a racist.
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey said, "I'm not a racist. I'm a race man." Meaning that I'm not a racist. I don't feel like I'm superior to you. I'm a race man. I care about my own race. It's however, that is still a separation there.
Because what about everybody else?
Right. So we have to move beyond these political labels and begin to find ways to speak about these things in a positive sense. without, for example, I don't think that Trump is a racist. I think he's confused. I'm serious. I think he's confused. And we have labeled it as racist because he's doing it on the basis of skin color. That's not true. That is not true. The very people in West Virginia who voted for him are white, and he's still doing them the same way. So
They
that's
don't see it though.
huh?
Isn't it something that they don't see it quite the same way?
No, they don't. And the reason they don't is because they are confused. Their vision is confused. They can't see. Their vision has been clouded. How is it clouded? There's a scale that covers their eyes or their eye. And the scale that covers their eye is this thing called race. When you remove the scale from their eye, they will see the same thing. If you were able to remove the skin and just talk about it, then they would be able to see it. So if we continue to buy into this thing by saying racist, then we are perpetuating the idea of racial differences. But if we begin to talk about spiritual confusion or spiritual blindness in reference to these things, then what happens? We begin to create an environment where the scales can fall from the eye and they can begin to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And I know it's a bitter pill for us to swallow because of how we have been treated. But keep in mind, the only reason we have been treated the way we have is because the one who created us allowed it to happen. So if there's anyone you're going to be upset with, not Trump, because he didn't create himself. You understand what I'm saying? The choices that he's made are choices that have brought him to a state of confusion. And it's obvious that there is a depth of confusion there based upon the way he presents himself, based upon the way he speaks about issues and policies. One day is this, the next day is that. There's no consistency there.
None.
And if you look at white supremacists, there is no consistency with them either. So it's confusion, as opposed to this hard, fast label of racist. And I'm in territory that I don't quite understand right now, but I feel I feel I'm being drawn into this place to begin to change the vernacular so that we can change the way things are, because our perception is our reality. And if we perceive these things or these ideas and policies being racist, then that's what they are in terms of our reality. But in terms of the spiritual nature of them, are they truly racist, or are they a source of confusion? Because when Jesus, even when Jesus was dealing with the centurion, Jesus knew the Romans were racist, but he never said it. He didn't even deal with that at all. He did not talk about destroying the Roman government. He did not talk about destroying the priesthood. He said, I came to set things straight. I came to rightly interpret the law. So, and what did he do? The way he changed things is by talking about how things should be, as opposed to where they were.
That's a different, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what you're saying we need to do when we see, and I'm gonna bring it up. We call, and we know it's not all of them, police officers, we call them racist.
Uh-huh.
I have started, maybe it's been a month or so, when I'm in contact, I will say, thank you for your service. So, I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday. I went with her to probate court to file her son's thing.
Uh-huh.
And when we came in, you know what you have to do. You give them your
Mhm.
personal, and I did say, by the way, thank you for your service. So after she took care of her business. We were sitting there and we were just talking, and she said, "I know you didn't mean that." I said, "Yes, I do, because I think if I take that attitude and thank them, I think things will turn around for them." And we hadn't even discussed this, but she made me think and dig deep down inside me, did I really mean it, or why did I say it? I do believe
Yeah.
that there will be a change.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. We have to change the way we approach things. For example, you know, I go to Lowe's and I use my military just kind of say thank you for your service. That's just they're just saying that, you know. Plus, I don't need them to thank me for that anyway because after what I did, I don't want to be thankful because it wasn't even right. But anyway, the idea of the policeman is different than the idea of a soldier because policemen are supposed to be there to serve the public good.
Right.
And I do believe that if you look at where it came from and you keep it where it came from, then there will always be confusion, there will always be violence, there will always be a separation there. Because the policemen were never designed to be one with the African community. Because the policemen were always designed to be the overseers or the
Foremen.
the dudes who watch the slaves.
The foreman.
Yeah, no,
overseas.
wasn't the foreman. You know,
What they
just
call 'em?
overseers. They patrolled these plantations to make sure that the slaves stayed in order. That's where policemen came from, patrolling the plantations, and that's what they still do. But it doesn't mean it can't be changed. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that the whole concept of it cannot be changed. If it is to be changed, we have to change it. And if we are to change it, then we have to be changed in terms of our approach, verbal approach, our emotional approaches, our thought processes. Yeah, what is it, Barbara Jane? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
So would it be,
go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say, so would it be accurate to say that it's a bit like being spiritually and intuitively aware of the true source of the disease as opposed to just the symptoms that it creates?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.